दुनिया में दो तरह के लोग होते हैं। एक वो जो कहीं से या किसी से इंस्पायर होके बहुत बड़े बड़े काम कर जाते हैं, और एक वो जो खुद ही इंस्पिरेशन बनते हैं अपने लिए और बाकी सबके लिए। स्वागत है आप सभी का एक और स्पेशल एपिसोड में। शो का नाम है इन फोकस, और आज हमारे साथ हैं शगुन चौधरी, द फर्स्ट एंड ओनली वुमन सो फार टू रिप्रेजेंट इंडिया एट द ओलंपिक्स इन ट्रैप शूटिंग। शगुन जी से जानेंगे उनकी शूटिंग जर्नी और उनके लाइफ के बारे में सब कुछ। वीडियो को एंड तक जरूर देखना, बिकॉज इस कॉन्वर्जेशन में इंस्पिरेशन की कमी नहीं है। सो लेट्स गो।
Hello, let's all welcome Shagun ma'am, the first and only so far woman to represent India at the Olympics in trap shooting. Welcome ma'am, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on your platform. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. So I kind of want to take you right back to where it all started. We know how you were introduced to clay bird shooting, right? At a very young age. I think it was 3, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I was introduced. Everybody thinks that I picked up a gun at 3, but that's not the case. My dad, because the gun was probably heavier than me at the time.
Yeah.
But my father used to take me along to the ranges. So we were in Bikaner at the time, and he used to take me along to the ranges. And because I used to really enjoy seeing him shoot. So that was my first introduction to skeet shoot, clay pigeon shooting, as you may call it.
So by the time you got around to actually being able to pick up the gun, so was it something you took to quickly, or was it a slow, gradual process?
No, it was a really slow and gradual process, because I picked up an air rifle first while I was in Jaipur. And my dad was always very, very enthusiastic about me taking up sport or shooting in particular. I was a swimmer in school, but he always pushed me towards shooting. So I started off with air rifle, and I used to go shoot air rifle. I got into college through air rifle. I went to JMC in Delhi University, and when I started my graduation, that's the time the dad said that because at that time Jaipur did not have any shotgun ranges, so there was no exposure to shotgun back then. But then when I went to Delhi and there was access to conditioning shooting ranges, that is when I picked up clay pigeon shooting.
So you mentioned your childhood and how you were interested in swimming as well. I think you were a national level swimmer also, if I'm not wrong.
I have been a national level swimmer, and but I didn't pursue that. I still swim, but now for a hobby and as a hobby. But shooting is something that I'm glad I chose over swimming. No offense to swimmers, but I just enjoy it.
Very fair, very fair. So tell us a bit about your childhood. How was it? Like, were you more inclined towards sporting, or was studies also a major block?
It was a major tussle, like what they say in in all Indian households, where sports is not something which is looked at seriously as far as a career is concerned. So I pretty much had the same scenario at home, where my mom was pushing me towards academics. Not that I was a bad student or anything, but she just thought that she didn't see any future in sport. So all the time that I was spending in sport, whether it was swimming or whether it was shooting or whatever it might be, was taking away from my study time. But little did she know that eventually it was basically sports that defines me. So my dad was at the time was very, like I said, was motivated me. He took me around. I remember he used to travel with me. We used to go to Ahmedabad for air rifle Mavlankar competitions and everything, just to kind of like put me into the flow of things. And as a person, like I've always been sporty. Like in school also, I was a part of many teams. We throw ball. We used to play a lot of baseball as well, believe it or not. So I swam as well. And then shooting happened. So there was always a lot of sport in my life. Like I was naturally inclined towards it. So, and I'm so glad, like I was one of the lucky ones where I defied my mom for a bit, and there were firecrackers at home, but my dad was had always been like I had all his support. So he's the one who pushed me, and here I am talking to you.
Nice. So, like, support from the home obviously is a major boost for any athlete starting out. But how was it coming up through the ranks? Like, it is unfortunate that we are in 2021 and we still have to talk about these things. That it is unfortunate for, like, it in India, if you are somebody outside of cricket, that too shooting, which at that time wasn't exactly that popular. I think around the time you started, Anjali Bhagwat ma'am started, Jaspal Rana sir, Colonel Rajendra Singh Rathore, all of these people started. That is when shooting actually started picking up. So around that time, how was it coming up through the ranks, being one shooter, obviously, and obviously a female athlete?
So it wasn't like whether it was Anjali or Jaspal or whatever, there was equal participation from both the genders in air rifle, air weapons, right? But as far as clay pigeon was concerned, it was an uncharted territory for any girl.
Yeah.
So I mean, it had its own sort of struggle because being the only girl, and if you're the first in anything, till the time you don't prove yourself to be of a certain metal, nobody takes you seriously.
Yeah.
So they think you're just there to have fun, or you're just coming. And because obviously shotgun shooting is at that time was a matter of prestige, in the sense there were only very few people who did it, a certain niche of people who did it, and so everybody associated that with the sport. And with me also, when I started shooting, everybody thought that I'm just here for probably a year or 2 years or something, and I'm not here for the long haul. Well, buddy, it's been 18 years and I'm still around. So when it started, it wasn't there were a lot of it was difficult. The men had a set pattern of being chosen for whether it's competitions or whether it's camps or anything. There was no pattern for a girl.
Yeah.
And sometimes the benchmark for a newcomer was set too high, which were difficult to achieve, and there was a lot of pressure because the clay pigeon shooting is a rather expensive sport.
Yeah.
And being brought up the way I am, I have been taught to be self-sufficient and financially independent, and not being dependent on anybody. It's just something that's been ingrained, something that I believe in as well. So I couldn't have expected my family to keep supporting me. I literally had to make a mark for myself, but I eventually was supported by the government, and I was recognized. So yeah, it wasn't easy being the only girl, I'll be very honest. My teammates, I won't even call them like teammates in the sense, my colleagues who were from the men's team did come out and help me. They did, but there was no professional support. Like even for camps that happened, I wasn't chosen, and it was the men's team that was chosen. Getting into camps was also very difficult. So they had a foreign coach at the time, but I wasn't allowed to participate in the camps. And my dad would kind of request the federation that if you could kind of like accommodate her somewhere or the other. So I mean, nobody talks about these things, but it's something that kids have it much easier these days. They have it much easier because there's a pattern that's being followed. Yeah. I had to make the pattern. So that's what the difference was. And so yeah, it was something that did not come easy, but I enjoyed it so much. Like those were pretty much my the best hours of my day. Yeah. Is to spend at Karnis and shooting ranges, along with the people shooting there, discussing scores, learning techniques, or just talk shooting. And that's pretty much been that's how it was. So
I think in 2005 you had to switch from double trap to trap because in all their infinite wisdom, Olympics stopped it for the women's section only. So how difficult? I'm sure it wasn't an easy switch. I'm sure it was a
No, it
difficult
was.
one.
So I was basically a double trap shooter before.
Yeah.
My first international medal also, which I picked up in 2003,
Yeah.
was through double trap. And so for me, I had like, for any athlete, an international medal is a huge boost. And to top it off, it was my first international competition in Delhi on home ground, right? So, and nobody expected anything of me. I was just like, okay, it's happening in Delhi. It's an easy participation. Let her shoot. There's nothing to lose. There are no flights to take. There's no hotel bills to pay or anything. You're coming from home. You're shooting competition. It's very simple.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much, I guess, why it happened. And so in 2003, when the Asian shooting shotgun championship happened, I picked up my first bronze and defeated the Chinese. I think I was more shocked than people around me that it had happened. So, but that for me, that was like a huge, like, morale booster, because it was a medal of recognition.
Yeah.
It gave me the confidence that I can take the sport forward, and so what if there's nobody else around? I can still make a mark for myself from there. So I started to pursue double trap wholeheartedly, and all my energies were till 2004 Beijing happened, and 2004, sorry, Athens happened.
Yeah.
And they took this decision that double trap for women will be eliminated from the Olympics. And for me, it was, if I was pursuing the sport so much, it wasn't just to be a part of the Indian contingent, or of course that is a matter of great pride, but I just didn't want to be a name there. I wanted to achieve something, and for me to achieve something was to get to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Something that nobody had done before, and something that you are spending so much time and energy for. So when that's taken away from you, that the sport that you're in, and you can't even reach the Olympics, then it doesn't make sense to pursue it anymore. For me, it didn't make sense to pursue it. So I had no choice but to switch to trap. But I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I didn't give up. It was obviously there was a change of technique, there was a change of the way mentally how you approach the sport, and all those conditions. But yeah, it happened. So 2005, I made the switch, and I'm glad I did.
And I think then, like, the big, I think it was more of a relief after having made the switch. 3 years later, you won the gold.
In the national championship, I won the gold a couple of times, and then I had. Then the best part is, like, after I got, then there are a lot of the other girls also who started coming.
Yeah.
So then you have your own girls team. Then things got nicer. They got more comfortable, because you had friends to talk to, in the sense, like, you would be a part of the team. It would. And you were all learning. You were all learning together. You were so it kind of just, the environment really helps the athlete in performance.
True. And
the environment has to be conducive. So once people start taking you seriously, and they know that you're also putting in the hard work as much as the boys are doing.
Yeah.
Because for me, there was a major gender differentiation. So it kind of it worked out well, and then obviously with more girls joining the sport, it just became a lot more easier. We had we started going for camps together. We were going as teammates together. There was camaraderie, there was bonhomie, so it worked out well.
I think the best part was you guys were being planned for, and not just, okay, these are also there. I think that was a major shift.
No, but we were literally like sheep till I think 2011. Till 2011, people used to still make comments that the girls team is only here to shop, and they don't. That's all. They just want to go to all these countries and everything, and it's basically they want to shop. But they never thought that we actually want to do something. So and that changed.
I think a major mentality shift in that department only happened after 2016, actually, when all the Olympic medalists were girls.
for women. Yeah, whether it's P.V. Sandhu, whether it's Sakshi Malik.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I think that is when people actually, okay, this is a viable thing to support, which is again
So
unfortunate,
changed,
but glad it's happened.
it changed again in clay pigeon shooting. It changed again after 2012.
Yeah, definitely.
I went to the Olympics. Before that, there would be probably like 20 girls who would participate in the nationals.
Okay.
But after I went to the Olympics, there were over 100 entries.
Nice.
So it just kind of, it takes. I mean, it takes time.
Yeah.
But as long as there's hope that there's, if the whole idea, if she can make it, so I can do it too.
True.
So if that mentality comes into play, then automatically things fall into place, and they have fallen into place. We have a very strong junior bench strength, and we are, and it keeps us on our toes, because you need competition on the Indian side in order to be able to perform your best when you're competing internationally. If you don't have any competition at home, then you're they say na andho mein kana raja.
Yeah.
So it's that.
So we spoke about the 2012 Olympics, and we all know how you were the first ever Indian woman to represent India in trap. How was that experience? Like, first obviously qualification and then the Olympics itself. How was that on the whole?
So the qualifications for me happened in 2011.
Yeah.
And I came very close to qualifying at the Slovenia World Cup. And that happened in July 2011. And I shot a score of 72 out of 75. And there were a couple of other athletes also on that score, making it, and they're only the top 6 in the World Cup that make it to the finals who vie for the Olympic quota. So in the shoot-off, which is sudden death, that's where I lost. And 72, it was a pretty decent score. It was a very high score, and I came so close, and I was dejected. I was obviously very upset. My coach said, doesn't matter, we have 2 more chances, we have the world. Now in Slovenia, we had 2 quota places. Okay. And at the World Championship, there was only 1 quota place. So it was easier if you get into the final in Slovenia to pick up a quota place. It got more difficult in other competitions. So anyway, after that, I went for a little holiday to take my mind off, and came back to Italy, trained, and then flew to Belgrade. And in Belgrade, again, I remember this clearly. After my 3rd round, again, I finished on a 72. And I was like, okay, great, 72, definitely in the final. I look back, and that time my coach Marcello was there, and I'm like, I just did a thumbs up, and he just did this, and I was like, what? He's like, shoot off. And I was like, again? So he's like, yeah. And then I think we were 7 girls to 3 places in the finals. And but I went in a lot more confident in the shoot-off than, because that was my first ever in the sense of the world stage. And this I was more, because I was confident about my technique. I was confident of the way I was shooting. So I won the shoot-off, and then I went into the final. I was leading into the final, but again the pressure of the quota was so high that I came fourth, but picked up the quota. But I remember when I was shooting, I had no idea what was going on. I knew that the Chinese had missed a few. I knew the Americans had missed a few. I was gunning for the quota with the Australian. And then finally, when I shot my last target, I just looked back. My dad was there at the time. And I just looked at him, and I'm like, what happened? So he came running up to me, and he hugged me really tight, and he's like, baby, we're going to London.
Nice.
And it was that moment where I was like, it was just such a sense of relief that from starting from 2005 to 2011, and without as athletes we go through a lot. I mean, there are so many more failures under our belt, and there's that one win that kind of makes everything okay. And for me, I said that was it. It was just this getting the first ever card for India to the Olympics, which actually justified my 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 participation in the sport, my investment in the sport, the amount of years that I had been away from family, and so it finally it all came together and it started to make sense.
And how was it at the Olympics?
So at the Olympics it didn't just stop. So once I won the quota, then the policy, the federation's policy had just changed. So the athlete wins the quota, but the athlete wins the quota for the country.
Okay.
So then you have to go through another set of trials within the country in order to keep the quota. So
That's not
it is
fair, I think.
yeah. So again and again, so there were trials. I think there were 4 trials held, and there was a lot of in the middle there were some news articles saying that the quota will go to somebody else from the male gender, and it was quite a mess. And then I had to like participate in those trials, and so when you're going in to participate in these sort of trials, it's a very different mindset because you're on the defensive, you're trying to keep what you earn, whereas the other people are aggressive because they're trying to take that away from you. But finally everything went off well, and finally this was September when I won the Olympic card, and my participation was confirmed in March or April. So it was a long time.
Sounds slightly unfair to me. Not just slightly, but
I thought so too at the time. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah,
because you earned it. You've done that. I don't.
yeah,
think
I know. But then they make policies that we just have to abide by them. But next time I wish somebody else gets the quota and I get a fair chance to win it from her, so it's fine.
So you spoke about the policies and all. You've been in the sport and the Indian hierarchy and the Indian system for a while now. What kind of changes have happened for the good over the last few years? With
a lot more visibility has been given to the sport.
Okay.
A lot more government funding has happened because shooters have been performing on the world stage. Shooting was the number one sport of the country 2 years back. We had surpassed China, Italy, everything. It was so obviously things are getting better, and they have a very strong. What's important is like earlier we didn't have any juniors, especially with precision shooting. It was basically seniors who were becoming veterans, and there was nobody who was really coming to the sport. So now what they've done is they're actually getting youngsters and they're having camps for them. They're having they're having a sort of a pool where they're actually nurturing younger talent and giving them equal exposure, and if not more than the seniors, in order to reach that stage. So things have become better like that. That's why the Indian contingent also that you see, there are lots of young faces.
True.
And it is because they have been given the exposure that we were not denied, but I don't think anybody had the know-how or they had the foresight at the time that how important this would be in the coming years, and how important giving the right coaching, giving the right environment, giving the right exposure, international competitions is very important to building an athlete. Because just competing in India amongst Indians does not give you that, you don't understand what the pressures are actually all about when you're going to an international competition. So that's what's changed now. And obviously because we've been performing, the sports ministry has been very kind, the government of India, so funding has improved. So yeah, we have many more camps. We have, earlier when I started, we would probably have like 15-day camps in a year. Now we have so now these kids have like month-long camps every 2 months, and then they have friendly competitions that they go to and all that. So yeah, things are definitely looking up.
Nice. So and on the whole, is it opening up more for women, and is it more of a conscious effort, or is it more of on the whole society changing thing?
It was a very organic process, and it just happened. It wasn't something, I don't know whether it was a conscious, I think it was just more women, by seeing other women performing, that created a ripple effect. And that's that's how more it's like you see as far if you see cricket or if you see football, if you see one Baichung Bhutia and you have an academy of kids who would want to be like him. It's a similar situation with any sport. So you have one person who's you see people performing, you see them getting accolades, you see them getting the fame that they deserve, whatever, you want to be like them. So automatically you pick up a sport and you say, okay, earlier girls did not pick up the sport because, oh, the gun is very heavy, the recoil is so much, you're out in the open, so everybody's wearing like sunscreen and caps and just trying to protect themselves. But now things have definitely, now I see like almost an equal number of, hopefully in the next 1 or 2 years, almost an equal number of participation as far as the girls are concerned. But it has definitely exponentially risen quite a bit.
I think parents are also opening up to that idea a little more. Like you said earlier, it was always like, okay, you're a woman, just please don't hurt your skin or something of that sort. Now it's more like, just okay, do what you actually want to do instead of just.
Absolutely. I think parents have also opened up to the idea of kids taking up sports professionally.
Yeah.
And sports is something that it makes you whole. Because you are with it's a great balance if you're competing with the same people whom you're friendly with.
Yeah.
And to have that balance of putting out your competitive side and then going back and then backslapping each other or whatever is very important in as far as life skills are concerned.
True.
Right? Where you you're all together and you're as one. So even if one person is like today, whoever is performing, whether it's Manu Thakur who's performing or whether it would have been somebody in Clay Pigeon who would be performing, we are all rooting for them because it's because at the end of the day we are all under the Indian flag.
True.
And all of us just want like one or the other to take that flag out, whoever that might be, because it's a collective effort. It is just everybody working together, working for just that one national anthem being played in any sort of, and so it's a very strong sense of community. What I call like sports is. It is where, like I said, you're competing at the same time. You're also
friends with each other.
You're sharing the room together when you and making sure that the other person wakes up on time, and it's just like the entire process is very interesting to actually watch. An athlete's life is very interesting since I've seen it up close and personal. Yeah,
I've also been lucky enough to see a little bit of it. It's like honestly till this day I can say there's nothing like it. I've done a lot of things after that, nothing like that. I've never seen anything like that. So talking about the last 1 year, and I know for a fact that you've been taking up organic farming and all, and through that as a medium you've done a lot of work on empowering women in the area. Please if you could tell us a bit.
So after the pandemic struck and everything, I finally came back home after 20 years of staying out. I've been based in Delhi and we've been going, there's a lot of travel and everything involved because your life is basically between training and competing and rest periods. But rest periods also are defined by very regimented, they're very thought of rest periods. So when the pandemic struck and everything came to a standstill, so I came back home, which is in Jaipur. My family lives on a citrus orchard, and so while I was here, there was no shooting happening, so I had to keep myself occupied. And then I realized that a lot of people had lost jobs because especially the first lockdown, a lot of people had come back home. And I just feel very strongly about women being financially independent and self-sufficient, and I want to make that change, especially in the rural area where they feel equally responsible of bringing money to the table through their own hard work and should not be looked at as any lesser, because at the end of the day we all live in a patriarchal society, so we all have to do our bit to change that, to whichever small step we can. So I made it a conscious decision that whoever worked on the orchard, whether it was tilling the land or whether it was picking the fruit or whatever it might be, I only hired women from rural areas around. And they would come. Some actually stayed with me at that point, but then they unfortunately the homes did not allow them to, so they would come in the morning and leave in the evening, but they would work on the farm. So that is what I've been working now. So that organic farming is still underway, but now I'm also building a farm stay, because looking at the current scenario, I feel people are looking for places to stay where it is outdoors and open and all of that. So I'm also doing that. And again, what I'm going to try and do is hire as many women as possible in order to run it. And also I feel air rifle shooters have it easier because they could at least train in the pandemic, because they could have 10-meter ranges and all. So I'm trying to, because I don't know what the future holds, and being away from training really takes a toll on you, because your muscle memory and everything goes for a toss. So I'm trying to build a private range, not a range, but I'm just trying to get machines so that my training doesn't stop. So I will have those at the farm, and I will continue to train even if there is some, whether there's a lockdown, because it's all up in the air right now. We really don't know how the this entire scenario is going to play out.
Yeah.
So I don't want to miss out, because I want to train for Paris 2024, and for that, if I need to even train at home ground, I'm going to do that.
So you spoke about how, like, in the last 1 year, it was the first time in 20 years that you had a stretch of time to yourself mostly. And I'm sure in the first 20 years, you didn't really have a lot of time for anything apart from shooting. But I think
there was nothing.
in
I
this
missed
last...
all my friends' weddings. I missed
Okay.
all their weddings because I was always traveling. That's the biggest grudge that they all have. And I was never around for any celebrations at home, or any milestone achievements or milestones that people reached. So there are a lot of sacrifices in the sense you spend, and even when you're back and you're training, you have a very regimented life. So you have to continue with that routine, because that's what you go into when you're in competition. So this 1 year has been like, oh my God, what happened? Like, and you feel so vela because you have nothing to do. So then you're like, how do I keep myself occupied? So that's what I ventured into, which I will continue to do now because I'm really enjoying it along with you. So.
Apart from that, was there any other interest areas, like maybe even something as simple as movies or something?
Netflix has been my best friend.
What's the best thing you've seen in the last 1 year?
I've seen a couple. I really enjoyed Atypical. Then that was on this autistic boy who was as frank as possible. Then I'm really bad. Like my memory, I think it's basically it was gunshots or something, but I really don't. I have trouble remembering things. But if I see the thing, I'm like, I watched this. But Atypical was great. Then obviously Game of Thrones and all, obviously. And I've watched quite The Looming Tower. I'm watching, so that's really nice. So a varied genre.
I don't think you're alone in not remembering what you watched, because
There's just so much content. Earlier,
Exactly.
One movie that used to come out in 2 weeks, of course you would remember it. Now you're going through half movies like every 2 days.
Yeah.
How much can you take? Soaking it.
That's what.
So-
And after a point, everything starts looking alike. Like, okay,
Yeah.
there's also that time that you need off from that. So apart from shooting, what other sport do you enjoy watching or do you follow?
I really enjoy tennis. I really enjoy watching tennis. Unfortunately, I can't play it, but so I'm trying to change that because at least
It's a good
learn how
workout.
to-
It's a good workout.
Yeah, it's a
very
great
good
workout, and I've been watching tennis religiously because I watched Roger Federer go out the way he did, and I was like,
That was
that
heartbreaking.
hurt. Yeah, that was.
Are you
that
team
was-
Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic?
See, because I met Djokovic at the Olympics, I have a soft corner for him. I know a lot of people do, but it is, and he's been winning, so yeah. Yeah.
So, in the shooting community, who do you enjoy hanging out with the most?
Oh, my girlfriends. We are a riot. Yeah. So my Seema Tomar, Shresi Singh. Yeah, these two are like I think the three of us are always, we've got each other's backs like nobody's business, and it is just such a great friendship that's formed over so many years. I remember Seema. Seema started shooting trap in 2005. We went to Thailand together, and I've seen Seema evolve into this amazing independent human being coming from Bagpat, just the way she's evolved into this confident girl. This is what sports actually. So yeah, Shresi and Seema are two people who are literally, who I've spent most of my time with. And then obviously there's Manav and Manav Sambu and the boys team. But yeah, these two are very special.
So when growing up, was there any specific sports person that you looked up to, or who you were inspired by? Okay, this any sport, not just maybe. Okay, one shooting and one anybody else.
Shooting back in the day, I think Jaspal Rana was quite the most talked about because junior world champion and all of that. So yeah, and that time shooting was not, you don't watch it on TV, so it was just the names that you heard. So yeah, Jaspal Rana was one person who, and Dr. Karni Singh ji, who taught my dad, of course. So yeah, so it was,
it's a good example to follow.
Yeah, so it was, I don't think I could have got better than that.
Yeah.
So just him teaching dad and dad pushing me into the sport. The cycle just it came full circle. So I'm happy about that.
Anybody from any other sport that you kind of looked up to?
Sunil Gavaskar, cricket. Yeah.
I did not peg you as a cricket fan, honestly speaking.
No, not a cricket, but just like I think there was a lot more humility and there was a lot more into sport at that point in time. Then obviously Leander Pace had been playing for many years, so he was one of them who would really look forward to watching. When he would play at the Olympics, you would definitely want to watch that. And PT Usha, and Milka Singh, obviously now that they're coming to me. Yeah. So I had a lot to Indian sport had great sporting heroes who kind of laid out the red carpet for all of us to follow. So
whenever you're low or things aren't going the way that you probably hoped for, what do you do to get yourself out of that thing? Or is there any specific person that you would turn to, family, friends, whoever?
No, I don't really like talking to anybody about it because as an athlete, you know exactly where you've gone wrong, and nobody else will ever be able to understand. So it's better to sit down with your own thoughts and analyze after a competition that has not gone so well, that what were the steps that you can rectify with the second one, and what do you need to do for that. So I don't, if I had a sports, when I had a sports psychologist, then I would obviously talk to him because he would be working personally with me. Everybody tries to help by giving advice, but you have to be very careful about where the advice is coming from, because if they're not sports people and they haven't felt what you felt, then it makes, it really doesn't augur well for you. So you have to be very particular about whom you talk to about your failures or where you went wrong or why you went wrong. And I never believe in blaming my equipment for it unless and until it malfunctions or it's always me behind the gun. And if I've missed the target, it's all on me. It's not on anybody else. So it's music helps quite a bit. And just talking to myself, then I play out competitions in my mind, and I know exactly what I should have done in a particular shot, which led to. So it's just self-analyzing and pondering, and then working on that so that it doesn't happen in the next competition. So I'm really big on visualization. So that is one tool that has helped me quite a bit.
That's something that people should
And
actually.
looking and watching, motivate, and reading inspirational books and on other athletes. So that helps too. Yeah.
What's the best of the lot that
My
you've
best
read?
was Open by Andreas.
Nice.
Has been my best sporting book so far.
Okay.
I don't think there has been a more honest, book or an honest admission of a sports person's life than that book.
Yeah, he just laid it bare. Just take everything.
Yeah, he did.
So coming back to the shooting side of things, the Olympics are on right now.
Yeah, yes, they are.
Unfortunately, it hasn't been the best of starts.
No.
Do you think the upcoming shooters, they have a lot of promise? Everybody in the Indian team, in the Indian shooting space right now, there is a lot of promise. Do you think we can expect more coming in the coming days?
In the coming days, we have Rahi who's going to be competing. We have Sandeep Rajput who's going to be competing. So we are looking at more, but to be honest, the 10-meter air rifle and 10-meter air pistol events was something that we were really counting on.
Yeah.
But just and that's what everybody is talking about. For me, like any athlete who reaches the Olympics is it all depends on that.
Yeah.
It really all depends on that day, because you worked hard for 4 years and it culminates into that one day, and if that day doesn't go in your favor because it's not that these guys, like whether it's Rahi who picked up a gold medal at the Croatia World Cup and with a brilliant score, so they have been performing. Now we can just hope for the best. Yeah.
And it was quite heartbreaking the way the whole Manu Bakar pistol malfunction episode happened.
That was really sad, and I mean, she was right there.
Yeah.
And once the rhythm of an athlete breaks, and especially at that stage, with something which is not in her control, it's not that she froze. It was,
Yeah, and people are already bundle of nerves by then. In any case.
Imagine if something like that happens, then it just escalates to a different level altogether. So, and I saw images after, she didn't make it to the finals, and they were literally heartbreaking because, I mean, we've all been there, so we know exactly how much it takes to actually get there. She's been performing really well, and the pistol gave up, and people are saying she should have changed the pistol, but not realizing that there are a lot of aspects that go into changing a weapon at that stage, whether it's your grip, whether it's your sighters, how much time you have, how much time is left for taking the shots, how much time will it take to make all those changes. So she did the best possible, and it was just not her day. I mean, it was just unfortunate the stars weren't aligned, but hey, she's only 19.
Yeah,
so
long way to go.
A lot of shooting in her. So, and this was her first Olympics. I think she'll come back stronger in the next one.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. So I'll start moving towards wrapping up. Just couple more questions. Shooting in India is on the up at the moment. I mean, you guys really paved the way for a lot of young people. What do you think needs to happen now at this point in time to take the sport to the next level in India?
I think federations need to have a foolproof policy system. Like their policies have to be easy, and they basically have to be based on merit, and that will take the sport forward. Obviously, there is we need to rethink of what might not have worked out, whether there was a lot of articles about coaches squabbling and all of that. So we need to iron out those pieces and see what works out, because the athletes are there and the athletes are trying to perform their best, because hey, who doesn't want a medal?
Yeah.
But the backing, the system has to back it up. It has to be a foolproof system to back it up. It has to be a clean system to back it up. It has to be all for the athlete. And once we do that, I think that will make all the difference, because somewhere it gets mixed up with something sometimes what the coaches want, sometimes what the federation want. I think if they put the athlete first and see, because the athlete is trying to perform his or her best with whatever facilities are in place, and if you put the athlete first and ask them what they require, and then work around that, then I think things will be in place and things will be far more easier for you.
I really hope that happens, because from my perspective, I think they probably need to get more ex-athletes and senior athletes into the administration also, because I don't think there are enough at this point.
They need to get senior athletes who, without any vested interests, are only playing for the sport and or are only creating champions for the sport. I think that's very important. So you literally have to pick people who give that confidence, where even if whatever team you're producing or whatever team you're coaching or whatever has to have immense confidence in your ability in order for them to reach well. So the coaches play a huge role in that, and a massive role.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing that needs to be.
Your plans for the future? I know Paris 2024 is in the sight.
Yes, absolutely.
How hopeful are you?
Well, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to hope that it happens, because I came very close to Rio as well.
Yeah.
And I missed out on finals in the Acapulco World Cup by one target. I missed out on the Gabala World Cup in Azerbaijan by another 2 targets. So it was a very, very close thing. So similarly, I just have to work hard and keep putting up good scores, and if the day is in my favor, then I don't see why it can't happen.
I really hope it does, ma'am. Just one last parting advice for upcoming shooters and sports people in general.
I just feel that whether it's shooters or sports people in general, or they just have to follow their heart. And because if they do that, then there's nothing that they can't accomplish, because if you're following something that you're passionate about, you're anyway putting in the hard work. Nobody has to tell you to do so. So you're anyway doing whatever you can to be the best at what you are, and you are your biggest competition. So you just have to keep getting better, and then all sorts of things.
That's a nice, hopeful note to end on, ma'am. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure talking to you, ma'am. And I'm sure anybody watching will be able to learn a lot. I hope Paris 2024 happens. We are all rooting for you, and I hope we can do this conversation sometime again.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you.